Welcome to The Lake Effect, Barrie and Muskoka's podcast for fine building and cottage home building. Welcome to the Sandbox Center in downtown Barrie. So today I've got Dave Coy with me. He owns a company called DREAMDOCKS. It's based out of, where's your official address?
Wabashine.
Wabashine.
South Georgian Bay.
Fair enough. And you can see it from the highway when you're driving up 400.
Right on Highway 400, yep.
Yeah, right next to an Esso station,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. On the west side.
On the west side of the highway, just north of the bridges at Wabashine, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into your company, DREAMDOCKS. So what's the main focus of DREAMDOCKS? What do you do?
So DREAMDOCKS is a company that we founded to start building docks for customers through the Muskokas, inland lakes, Georgian Bay. And then we expanded into boat lifts and drive-on sea-doo ports and accessories. We have a retail showroom. We have crews, nine guys, plus 4 boats and multiple trucks, whatever. That are going out running all over Muskoka, Georgian Bay, Simcoe County, and taking care of your waterfront needs.
Okay, are you on the other end of the phone all year long? Somebody can call in to get a quote?
Absolutely. Yep.
Get a drawing, that kind of stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. The phone starts ringing for us first of the new year, right after January 2nd, and we're go.
Okay, so as far as the product is concerned, so we'll dig into the product. So I think you've got 3 main types of products, right? What are those 3 products?
So we have docks, floating docks, fixed docks, pole docks, that sort of stuff. So we take care of that. And then we have boat lifts, which is a big part of our business and a growing part of our business. And then we have accessories, things like drive-on ports for your sea-doos for parking them, swim ladders, mooring hardware, bumper edge, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so let's start with the boat lifts. You seem to be passionate about it. So
yeah, it's a great category for us.
Okay, so we're going to show the viewers what a boat lift looks like. So got a hydraulic boat lift here with a red boat on it. If we can go to the screen there, Cale. So in this picture, we have there's a canopy. I assume that canopy is part of the assembly that you sell.
In that one there, yeah.
There's also like a box with a solar panel.
Right. So that's your pump. That's your pump box. So it's a 12 volt. That particular one is a 12 volt system with a solar panel on it. So we can put that anywhere. It's fully,
no power? No
power required for it. Wireless remote controls. That's why we've got in that particular picture. We got the box on the far side of it. That's actually my personal one. And my boat that's sitting on it. And what we have there is
that's
something.
That's your boat?
Yeah.
That looks frightening.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun. But what you notice about that, again, with a canopy on it, I spent a whole bunch of money through COVID having that boat totally refinished.
That's very nice.
And so now it sits on a lift, and I call it the jewel box. I mean, it's sitting there. It's out of the sun. The rain doesn't get into it. The leaves, the pine needles, all that stuff stay off of it.
Okay,
and it keeps it clean.
So 2 things come to mind. One is, I'm in awe on somebody who's looking for a boat lift. I'm thinking like running power or spinning a wheel. This is solar powered, which is great. Okay. It looks like it's a flexible system, so you can probably build that in a number of different sizes.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. We can go up to 30,000 pounds.
Okay, and how much does that boat that's on there weigh?
That one weighs about 2,500 pounds.
Great. So that's be one of the smaller versions, and even when you go that heavy, you've got a canopy, right?
If you want, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Canopy is an extra accessory on that, but it's a great add-on for it.
Yeah, keep the sun off. Okay, so we'll bump to the next picture here, which is a hydraulic boat lift as well. It's a little bit different. Let me just get the picture to load here. Okay, so we'll have a look at a second boat lift here. This one's a little bit different. It's got no canopy on it, and it looks like it's a much tighter assembly.
Yeah, so that's it's a cleaner setup on that one. That's one of our new lifts. That's one of our Canadian suppliers that we just brought on this year. So that's a product called Paradise Boat Lifts, and we're really excited about those lifts.
Well, there's some irony.
Yeah,
they're called Paradise. So you want to go into that history just like for a second or two?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know each other. Actually, we know each other through Troy at Flow Designs, which is down in Honey Harbor. I got a place in Honey Harbor. You're close by. I needed a deck. I don't know what to call it. It's a dock. Sometimes it's a deck.
Depends on the water level.
Yeah, depends on the water level. I called you up. I got good price, great service, professional execution. It was at the time there was people out there doing it. There's a lot of professionals, but there also were people who were just like transitioning into that business, and they didn't know how to drill a hole in granite.
Right.
So as a customer, very, very pleased. Knowing that history, at the time you were called Paradise.
Yes, sir. So when I founded the company in 2017, founded it as Paradise Docks and Lakeside Living. in 2019 or so, I got a letter from a nice company in Western Canada that I knew existed called Paradise Dock and Lift. And they were trademarking their name across Canada because they were launching their own product lines, or had launched their own product lines, and were looking for dealers in Ontario. So at that time, they had been on the name first. We moved off of the name and became Dream Docks.
Okay, well that's so you might not know this, but the way you handled that I thought was awesome, right? You provide a good service, swap up a name, keep it similar. We had the same thing. There's an Accurate Glass Products in BC.
Right.
They've ironically existed for the exact same amount of time that we have. So I could go pull out Yellow Pages to prove our existence, that kind of stuff. I just picked up the phone, called them, and I said, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to trademark, or do you want us to trademark? Or do you want to have a court battle and pay for it? And he was super nice. It was actually the founder's nephew, I think, who's running it now. And he said, no, you do what you do, I do what I do. And if somebody looks up Accurate Glass on the other side of the country and they come up with you, well, the more advertising you do, the more business I'm going to get.
Right.
His attitude was very positive.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way. The world is so big now with the internet and everything else that, there's a Dream Docks in the States as well that I became aware of, so.
Yeah.
But
how do you trademark a word?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we came up with a way of rebranding into Dream Docks. We kept our brand consistent as far as our colors, our iconography, and we kept our service level. It really was just a change in name.
Okay.
And with Paradise, so the guy that owned Paradise at the time, or one of the partners at Paradise, he's no longer there. They were trademarking it, so their trademark lawyer said, hey, you need to get it clean. So that's fine. We moved off it.
Okay, well, the service is still great. It's the same guys, new products, Canadian products. So back to the boat lifts here. This one as well it looks like a solar box on the dock.
Yep. So that's a 24-volt system. There's actually 2 batteries in that. It's excellent hydraulics on that system. It's all Canadian made and engineered, which is fantastic. They got stainless steel cables or hoses on it. So there's a ton of great features on that, and also it's probably the hydraulic lift that can go in the shallowest amount of water, because with those lifts you're lifting from under the boat. The benefit to that is that when they're down in the down position, the boat's not there, it's a very clean appearance. The only lift is under the boat. So
so you don't have the canopy.
So you don't have the canopy, you don't have the framework, you don't have the winches and the cables and stuff like that you'd have on a traditional cable lift. So it's a great setup and incredibly well engineered. Paradise reached out to us last summer and asked us if we'd be interested, and they came and saw us. I've been out to see them in Vernon, and I'm in love with the product. I think it's fantastic.
Okay, so for the cottage owners, who are watching this, interested in something like this, ballpark, assuming the access is half decent and the location's near you, what would something like this cost? This one right here.
You're anywhere from starting around 16,000, 17,000 up to 25,000, 30,000, depending on how big you're going to go. It comes down to weight rating. So, if you're lifting a boat like in the picture there, that boat weighs 6,000 pounds. So you're probably into about an 8,000 pound capacity lift. So you're going to be in, said and done, you're going to be about 25,000.
Okay, and the reasons for doing this would be, as a boat owner, they're obvious to me, but they might not be to somebody who's new to boat ownership.
Right. So benefits to a lift is you're keeping the boat out of the water, so it's not getting rocked around by waves. You're not getting osmosis, which is moisture getting into the fiberglass, believe it or not. You're keeping the boat very dry. So the boat's going to last longer. It's not going to get washed up against the dock. On a lot of the lakes now, we have a lot of wake boats out there. We have a lot of people skiing and riding around in very large boats. The boats keep getting bigger every year, it seems. So you're not getting a boat that's going to get smashed up against the dock. And if you're in an exposed area like Simcoe, Georgian Bay, that sort of stuff, it's the only way that you're going to be able to keep your boat safe, when that storm comes up.
Okay, I don't necessarily want to have everybody switch over to aluminum welded boats, but we actually make the windows. Accurate Glass makes the windows for Connor Industries and goes into Stanley boats.
Absolutely.
Which are great, very durable. They take quite a beating. They can sit in the water. They're kind of, I wouldn't say maintenance free, but there's a different level of maintenance. But there's something about fiberglass and a fiberglass boat, having a fiberglass with a luxury to it.
Yep.
And I personally own a Scout. And my family, we had our first boat, a little 16-foot bow rider, when I was like 4 years old. Okay, osmosis is a real thing. Certainly the boats are better than they have been in the past. The compounds they're using,
Yes.
the materials are better. But there's absolutely a difference between a boat that has been elevated out of the water and one that's been sitting in the water, even in fresh water.
Absolutely. It'll last a whole lot longer. You won't get any barnacle growth on it, slime growth, that sort of stuff. Keeps it clean.
Yeah.
Far easier to maintain.
Yeah, which means you're also going to go faster. You're going to have less cleaning, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, more fuel efficiency.
Yeah, the fish might not get fed as well, but
Yeah.
okay. So we'll go from there to the Sea-Doo port rather.
Yep.
So these are I've seen a lot of these in different formats here.
Right.
Let me see if I can get it up. Okay, we got a picture of one on the screen here. It's a double.
Okay. Yep.
So how long do these typically last? What are they like for UV?
They're extremely color fast. They stand up really well. I mean, the Wave Armor brand that we carry has an 8-year warranty, straight up warranty. So there's no reason why this isn't going to last you 25 years, 30 years. They're foam filled, so if you do get a crack in them in any way, shape, or form, they're not just going to sink underneath your Sea-Doo, anything like that. They can be plastic welded if you can get it dried out. So if you get the moisture out of it, you can plastic weld them if that's been, but it's never been an issue for us. They stand up really, really well. Same idea, you're keeping your Sea-Doo out of the water. It's not getting rocked by boat waves. It's staying clean. Easy to get on and off the Sea-Doo, easy to put your covers on.
So you spoke about cracks, like, how would that happen? Not just getting on and off it, somebody hitting it from the side?
Somebody running into it or floating it into, putting it in Georgian Bay, and then the water level drops so bad like we've seen in the last few years in Georgian Bay, and next thing you know, it's sitting on the rocks. It can happen.
Oh, I see. So you got it from underneath as well.
Yeah, it would be damage. It's not just going to happen. I mean, those can even be frozen into the lake. We tell our customers all the time, freezing into the lake is not going to damage it. Ice movement is going to damage it. So if you're in an area where the water or the ice doesn't move, you're going to be fine. You put that in Lake Simcoe up against the shore, come springtime, it's going to get tore up.
Some people might take instruction from this. So, I mean, am I reading this correctly? Just kind of like you have a floating dock that you might disconnect from the shore, push it out 20 feet over the winter.
Bingo.
You can do the same thing with this?
You're exactly right.
Okay. And the warranty's still good?
And the warranty's still good. And a lot of floating docks, we actually leave them connected to the floating dock. So we'll disconnect the floating dock, or if you have a roller ramp on your floating dock, then we'll leave that hooked up. Otherwise, we recommend taking it out of the water.
What's the craziest or most amusing damage that you've seen somebody do to their own dock?
You know what? It doesn't happen very often.
No?
No. I mean, yeah, we've had one or two, that gotten driven into. With the Sea-Doo ports, I always say they're a drive up to, not a drive onto. So drive up to it, line yourself up, just a little blip on the throttle, and the machine will roll right up onto it.
I've seen some crazy stuff. I'm sure everybody who's ever sat at a boat ramp in the summertime on a long weekend. Yeah, Kale, you want a story or what? I remember, you know where Brit is?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, or maybe it was Point of Barrel. I was Point of Barrel. We went to a provincial park, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were camping out in the tent. Right across from us, there's a marina that rented boats to people.
Okay.
And there was a man and his son. His son was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they were, blipping the throttle on their way up to the dock, and there was some 14, 15-year-old kid running the marina, right?
Yeah.
And it's like crack of dawn on a Saturday or something. And I guess he was sitting on the opposite side of the boat that he normally sits on, and he rammed the throttle wide open. The nose of the boat went up in the air, straight up in the air, and he ended up on the dock with the motor screaming and the prop out of the water.
Yeah,
and his son just he was just like, Dad, help, what's going to happen here? And the kid, the 14-year-old kid or 15-year-old kid who was running the marina, the look on his face was priceless.
Yeah. It's amazing. I've been in the boat business my whole life. Like my family bought the water access cottage before I was born. I worked at marinas from age 14 to age 24 type of thing. I worked in the marine business. So I have very few stories about that.
Really?
Lots of great YouTube videos though that I've watched.
Yeah. There's a guy down Hullover Inlet. You familiar with that?
Oh yeah. Well, I was down there. I was down there in November.
Yeah, and there's a guy who does a program called the Chit Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Tobermory for about 5 years. I lived in Tobermory, and I lived within sight of the boat ramp, and I watched this go on every weekend, and just the husbands and wives screaming at each other, I found it so amusing. We actually put up a sign at our cottage that says, "I'm sorry for what happened when we were docking the boat." So we should make you some of those out of a piece of glass or something.
There you go.
Okay, so while we're talking about you, there's one thing that we had not met that many times. The first time I used your service, and you have a level of professionalism that I would say is kind of like, you can tell that you've had a lot of business experience, and you kind of take your personality out of it, or maybe it is your personality to be pretty serious about coming to an agreement that's a deal where you can rely on that deal. If there's extras or add-ons, let's talk about it now, so that people, like, it's a level of certainty that I felt as a customer that you don't get from every business, right?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. Thank you. When I founded the company, I didn't want it to be Dave Coy Docks.
Okay.
It wasn't about me, but I did want to build a brand. And so my background, I'd spent 20 years in commercial sales, and I was a sales rep for Behr Paint. So I worked with the Home Depot stores, and we built that brand. So I was really conscious of what it meant to have a product that people can stand behind, that people can take pride in, and that's what we built.
So when you're building docks that have wood, okay, so a wood deck, do you ever pull that card out and play that, and somebody's like, how do I maintain, like, what kind of oil do I put on this? How many times should I paint? Do you ever pull that out?
Yeah, this is the one thing you don't want the stain guy to be saying, but don't stain your docks. They won't last. It's
Shit.
they look good, but it's always going to be a maintenance issue. You know what? If you look at any of my docks, my personal docks, there's not a stitch of stain on them. Decks, yeah, great, but over the water with the moisture, full sun all day, every day, eventually it's going to fail, and you're going to be cleaning it and reapplying it. Coatings have gotten better. I left Behr in 2014, so the coatings have gotten better since then, in that, but they don't have the longevity. We were really into film formers for a while, so you wanted a coating that was on there, but when it fails, it peels and blisters.
What I put on mine was Australian oil,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a combination of tung oil and linseed oil. And I find that, so I've done it on a few different decks, like my deck at home, and I said, let's give this a shot on the dock, and man, does it ever look great.
Yeah.
And then the water just beads off.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that you have to do it every year for about 3 years, and then by the time you get to the third application, the cells are really filled with the oil, and then you say, okay, I can leave it for a year.
Right. What's nice about a coating like that is it's going to weather off. So again, you clean it and apply a fresh coat, and away you go. You're good. What in my day we were selling was film forming finishes, and when they failed, they were peeling and blistering, and you're scraping and sanding, and you had to strip it all down in order to put a fresh coat on. But it reminds me back of when I was a kid, and we had the res stains, and they were the oil stains. They penetrate in. A couple of years later, you go, seems to have all worn off.
Yeah, it's messy when you're applying it, but it's a natural. I mean, tung and linseed are natural oils.
Yes.
Yeah. So
okay. it pretties it, but as far as longevity on the treated wood, it doesn't really add anything to it.
Gotcha. Okay, well, the dock that you built for me, it's held up. There's no issues. It's still level. We put a very heavy glass railing, because that's what we do, right? We
Absolutely.
put railings on docks and decks.
And it looks fantastic.
It does. Anybody who's been through Honey Harbor probably could point it out pretty. Have you seen we put our accurate glass?
Yep.
That
frosted in logo. Yeah.
We didn't do that as an advertising thing. It was a joke, actually. The CNC machine operator at our shop said, "Hey, if you're putting it up, and it's a lit, we have lit spigots, so it lights up at night."
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen that?
I haven't seen it at night. No.
We'll get to a picture at some point, but it looks fantastic, and we just put those two panels there because I was waiting to call you back so that we can put in a ramp, and we'll show people what I want to do here, and maybe they want to do the same. So we got a floating dock with a ramp.
Yeah, Mike, your dock turned out great because it's drilled right into the rock.
So you don't even know if it's a deck or a dock.
Well, it depends if you're talking to the township. It depends where the water level is, and so on and so forth. It's a shoreside deck that we want to eventually join it in with the full dock system. So,
yes.
But it's drilled straight into the rock. It's on 2-inch solid steel pin. It's never going anywhere on the foundation.
It's even after glass weighs a lot, and even after we put the glass on the edge, there's not a single turn of a screw. It looks great. Okay, so we go to the screen here. We have a floating dock with ramp.
Yep.
I'm presuming this is somewhere in Georgian Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be, I'm not sure which location that one is, quite honestly, but we have quite a few of those. That's one of our arched ramps that we have manufactured for us.
Okay.
So that's nice because it's on rollers. So there's no fixed connection between the dock and the ramp. So as the dock gets beat up in the waves, it's able to move independently from the ramp. So it's not putting all that torque on the ramp. And in the wintertime, we don't have to disconnect anything. That can be left in that current condition there for the winter.
Okay, so for the record, I have a dock like this with a ramp on rollers like this.
Yeah.
My only suggestion is that, the rollers, the location that the rollers will be located is going to depend on the water level.
Right.
And you just have to make sure you have enough runway for those rollers. The only thing I could ever see wearing out is the rollers themselves, which are probably acrylic, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, they're actually they're a high-density polyethylene or HDMU, whatever the heck
So
that stuff
once every 10 years, take them off, replace them.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a fantastic looking dock. It looks like it's, so here's a question about floating docks. Typically, they're all anchored, right, on four corners? Or?
Ideally, I mean, if we have a hinged ramp where it's hinged to the dock, so it's flat transition rather than the roller step on,
Yes.
then you, depending on the exposure, how much wave action it gets and so on and so forth, you can get away with just anchors on the end because the ramp will hold it in place, but it's in heavy conditions and something like that where we've got the rollers on it, then we're going to be anchored on 4 ends.
Okay, so something that might be worth of note, anybody who's new to cottaging or wants to build a dock and have it last, a lengthy amount of time, is boat traffic is just as much a concern as natural wave action.
Absolutely.
Yes. If you ever, so from my place is Honey Harbor, if you follow the inland buoys,
Channel.
the channel, and go north, up to, let's say, Wabashing or Cognisheen.
Cognisheen. Yeah, sure.
As you're going down that, you'll see what it looked like older boathouses that are collapsed and fallen in. So what I didn't know until I talked to a very senior gentleman with a cottage right across from me, a guy from Michigan, is that there's actually been 5 boathouses on my island.
Oh, yeah,
5.
I believe it. Yeah.
Now there's none, right? Because I guess the last owner just gave up and said, we can't keep one standing.
Yeah.
Right? So wave action is definitely consideration. And
even though you're sheltered.
Even though
Yeah.
Well, we're
but
sheltered.
You have all the traffic.
Sheltered from the
weather,
from Mother Nature, but not sheltered from boat owners, right? So, here's an anecdotal thing. Hopefully somebody gets something positive of this. So being located right in the middle of a harbor, when we bought the place, I told my wife, I said, people are going to go fast, they're going to go slow. Sometimes people are going to even be doing the speed limit, but their boat is loaded in such a way where it's dragging its butt and you got a huge wake. Don't get upset. Right, you can't, because it'll drive you crazy.
Good advice.
Yeah, it'll just drive you crazy. Sure, once in a while she'll come out, screaming, and me too. But you can't let it drive. And everybody's kind of guilty of it. You go to the marina, you pick up 8 people on a, the boat's not the same as it was when it was just you, and you're leaving a huge wake and you don't even know it.
Yeah, or you think you're late for something or late to pick somebody up, and you've got the marina right there on the other channel, so you've got the split channel on both sides of your property. So yeah.
Okay, so what helps absorb some of that in a floating dock situation?
So good heavy anchors, which again, it's, so if you go to the hardware store, you can buy a 150-pound anchor. Well, that's not going to float a heck of a lot. So we use 500, 1,000, 2,000-pound anchors in a lot of cases. And chain on scope. So you want to have some length to your chain so that the chain is hanging a little bit. And then in really rough conditions, we'll put tensioners on it too, which is essentially giant bungee cords that we'll put into the chain. We'll take some slack out of the chain and put it in there so that there's some shock absorption.
Okay, so a lot of these principles, if somebody wanted to look this kind of stuff up, I mean, there's the Coast Guard produces a lot of books, and certainly their small vessel operator course has stuff, like spring lines on a boat, basically.
Same concepts,
yeah.
How are you going to secure it?
Yeah, and the scope of the anchor chains for a boat, it would be very similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, this is, when you're hiring a dock company, you want to make sure that you're hiring some professionals that understand all these concepts, that have the equipment to handle it. And they're, I've pulled out docks with, quarter-inch chain, 5/16 chain, or no, quarter-inch chain or thinner, 3/16, and we're putting in 3/8, sometimes half-inch chain on stuff. We're throwing in anchors that you can't just pick up and throw in. We're bringing our equipment to put in large anchors.
So when you first started this, you must have had to hit the ground running somehow. Like you had all this knowledge from you're
I've been on the water my whole life, water access cottaging my whole life. So worked for many summers doing construction in the Muskokas. Worked for a couple of different friends of mine in their construction company. So got all that experience from that. And we started small. We started with the smaller docks, and you build the experience. And I mean, after 10 years of doing this, 10 seasons of doing this kind of thing, you get to know it pretty well.
Okay, so we'll jump to the screen here really quickly. So what we have here is a picture of it looks like a barge.
Yep.
And you're putting in a boat lift in the picture.
Yeah. So that's our forklift barge. So that's a custom built barge. Well, it's built by a company in Minnesota that builds barges specifically for these applications.
Okay.
So it's a hydraulic fork system that's on there. We can extend 20 feet out the front. We can put your lift 8-10 feet up on the shoreline, or we can pick it up off of 8 feet of water as well. And then at the backside, there's actually hydraulic spuds that allow us to position in place. We have hydraulic actuators on them, so we can actually use that to help position ourselves when we're picking up things. So for seasonal applications, so again, Lake Simcoe, South Georgian Bay, that sort of stuff, where you have a lot of ice movement, and you have pole docks and boat lifts in particular, then we can go in the fall, we can pick them up, put them on shore for you, and come back in the spring and put them back in place. We've got a 28-foot steel barge for high capacity, and we've got a couple of nice big work boats that we can throw all of our gear in. I mean, I've got one work boat that's 24 feet long, 8 feet wide, 8.5 feet wide. I can throw 2 Sea-Doo ports and a swim raft in the thing, and it'll swallow it right up. It's fantastic. And again, that comes to that aluminum construction that you're talking about. I had those custom built, but they're very much like a Stanley or something like that.
Yeah, well, Stanley has come a long way as well. I mean, they started off with, they were hand cutting. We saw the factory actually
Right.
when they were hand cutting, and then went into robotic welding, and then of late they're building stuff that's more for state use
Yeah.
or provincial use, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of good custom builders out there. And talking to Troy, actually, he was
Yeah.
talking about his boat, and he's like, well, Stanley makes some great stuff, but if you're doing very specific things, you want to design the boat for you type
Yeah.
of thing. And, rather than buy Stanley and start cutting it up, look at the specific application that you're doing and find something that works.
And that's we've got 2 of these large open work boats, and I mean, the one is fairly low freeboard, so we can easily toss things in and out of it. It's 20 feet long, and it's fully open front to back. And then the other one is 24 feet, and literally we call it tubby. It's essentially, we have it's like having a disposal bin on the water. Like we go to tear out a dock, we just throw it all straight into this boat. We put the boat back on the trailer, drive it to the landfill, and start tossing the dock in the landfill.
Well, it sounds like a real good piece of kit, right?
That-
We've experimented with the same, just glass being so heavy.
Right.
We started with a trailer barge, and it just wasn't big enough, so we're just using barging services. But it's good to know that you have your own boats, and that they're specialized for this purpose.
I'm a huge fan as a business owner and an employer. I mean, I'm a huge fan of having the right tools for the job. So if we've got the trucks, we've got the boats, we've got the equipment to get things done. I'd prefer to have the gasoline do the work than having my guys break their backs and drop stuff on their toes and so on and so forth. So anything that I can get equipment to make the job easier and do a better result, I'm absolutely
plus
investing.
the timeline.
Yeah,
Right, improve the timeline.
absolutely.
Okay, so since you're using all the specialized equipment, you need to get it. So you have a way of launching, going to smaller lakes, this kind of stuff. You can service any size lake, I assume.
Absolutely, yeah. So we, I've gotten really familiar with all the various public boat launches and private access points that we have.
Okay.
So yeah, we service pretty much all the inland lakes. It's amazing, getting into this business. Driving up Highway 400 my whole life, I now know where every one of those little roads that go off of Highway 400 go to, because I've been down them. We've got customers all through it.
Okay, so as far as service area is concerned, I mean, you're located, right at the edge of Muskoka, Honey Harbor area.
Yeah,
Southern Georgian Bay.
absolutely.
I assume you service all of Muskoka, no problem.
Absolutely.
You probably, go out to the east towards Halliburton on a selective basis.
Right.
What would be what selective item would you prefer to do?
Things like boat lifts and pole docks and Sea-Doo ports and that sort of stuff, where I can throw it in a truck, I can drag a boat out there if we need to. The guys can go out and back in a day, easy peasy. Then we'll go, 3 hours if we need to. We've go to Sauble. We've gone to Halliburton. Absolutely.
Okay, so if a cottage owner in Halliburton is watching this, they want to give you a call, give you a chance to quote.
Absolutely.
It's not a problem.
Yep, boat lifts and that sort of stuff. We're happy to take care of you there. When it comes to construction of dock and delivering of floating docks, I mean, we'll do that too. But when it comes to a crib dock, a steel pin dock, a helical pile application where we're, on site multiple days, multiple weeks, then we're typically about an hour.
Okay, you reserve that for your local area.
Yeah, it's got to make sense.
Okay, what about down here at Kemple Bay? Have you done anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a lot of customers actually in the Berry City Marina with our drive-on CD ports. Yeah, I'm looking at them right up there in the picture. Yeah, I can see them up there in the picture. We have a lot of customers with pole docks and boat lifts around here. The South Shore is, again, Shanty Bay Road. I can see a couple of my projects out there.
Awesome.
On the walls here. But, we do Couchiching, Simcoe, Severn River, absolutely.
Okay, we'll jump to your website for just a second. So, what's the best resource? Your website, you've got a gallery here. So on a page it says residential, commercial, bumpers, cleats, and accessories, ladders, docks. Oh, so we didn't talk about accessories.
Yeah.
So things fail. I can see right in the picture here. You've got ladders. It's exactly the same ladder that I have at my place, and eventually somebody's going to hit it, break it, tie something to it, or whatever. They're quite durable, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if somebody wanted, we need a second ladder on the other side at some point.
Absolutely.
So people can
in stock in our showroom. Come by and see us. Bumper edge, cleats, dock hinges, floats. If you want to build your own dock, or you got to replace a float on your existing dock. We have all of that in stock and ready to go. Dock leg for your pole dock. If you bent some dock leg, we got various different sizes for that.
Okay, and then somebody wanted to pick up on a Friday or Saturday.
No problem at all. We're Monday to Friday. We're 8 to 5 at the shop. In season, this time of year is more like 4 o'clock. But and then in the summertime, so April, May, June, anyhow, up till Canada Day, we're Saturdays 10 till 2.
Okay, so open Saturdays, and if somebody called, placed an order, gave you a credit card, you could leave. You have a yard where they could pick something up on a Friday night.
We have a bin for pickups. We can arrange something, and I've got enough staff and myself that live close enough to the shop. If you need a special appointment, let me know. We can make it happen.
Okay, and then the websites. If anybody who's looking for a deck or a dock, or a dock or a lift. Rather, have a look at the website. There's some really good pictures, different examples. You've got a gallery on here, I presume?
Yeah, there's definitely galleries on there. And then there's also our buy online, pick up in store segment there too. So you can shop through and you can see things like our Sea-Doo ports are on there, or Sea-Doo small boat lifts, they're on there, cleats, bumper, swim ladders, all that's on there as well for buy online and pick up at store.
Okay, and then there's some pictures here of aluminum pole docks. So that's like you'd have on the shore of in Halliburton, maybe on Balsam Lake, where everybody pulls their docks out.
Absolutely. Lake Simcoe, all of Lake Simcoe, most of Lake Couchiching, South Georgian Bay from Wabashine over to Penetang. And actually, we do quite a bit down into Wasaga as well, and Nottawasaga River. Okay.
There's one picture here called Custom Designed Waterfront Structures, where there's 2 cribs and a set of stairs. Where do you stop and the GC starts?
That whole project is ours right there. So we came all the way down from the upper deck that was existing. We used our dock and a rock brackets there that bolted into the shoreline, and they're supporting the upper level deck systems and stair system coming down. And then you've got the cribs that were rebuilt of an existing dock, an original dock that was there, and then we go down to a ramp to a large floater.
Okay, so cribs are still used?
Cribs are still used, yeah, absolutely. There's no restriction on in anywhere where we're doing our work, even on the Trent Severn Waterway, there's no restriction against using cribs. We do have to abide by in-water work permits for those. And it's actually not a physical permit that we need to pull, but it's a timeline. So we can't be doing anything during spawning season from March 15th to July 15th. So crib docks, we often tear out and rebuild crib docks. The guys really like that because it happens after July 15th. So when they're in the water and they'll tearing these things apart and building up new ones.
If you get a chance, we shot a podcast, I think the Lake Effect podcast number 5. Where Don Campbell, who's our sales guy, came on, And what we were talking about is the effect of docks on fish habitat.
Right.
And what he kept saying is like the best fish habitat really that has existed is crib docks, because it
Right.
provides a place for the feeder fish to hide out, and then the larger fish come and try and
Right.
So if you can put a crib dock back, why not?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I do say that crib docks they'll all eventually fail.
Yeah.
The wood in the water will eventually get to the point where it's starting to disintegrate. When we replace a crib dock, typically we can pull out all the timbers. We're supposed to leave the rock in the lake. We do leave the rock in the lake, and you're supposed to leave the bottom foot or so for fish habitat where possible.
Yeah.
So we certainly do that. And then, but a lot of times to rebuild that, because there's a pile of rock there, we can't necessarily put another crib on top of it. So that's where we get into helical piles or steel pins and a variety of applications.
And build over top of it.
Build over top of it, straddle it.
Excellent. Well, I mean, what would a trip to the cottage be without a 5 or 6 year old kid getting a rusty nail in the side of their hand?
Well, here's hoping it's not one of my docks, but yeah.
No, but maybe in 40 years
Yeah.
from now, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's part of the experience. Okay, is there anything else you want to highlight on your website, or the shop section maybe?
Yeah, like I said, the buy online, pick up in store is a good part of it, and to visit us there. And lots of great information, but what we really want to do is we want to talk to you. Give us a call if you got any questions. Myself, my partner Mark are in the office most days, or you can text us, email us, and give us a call, and we'll work through with whatever your application is. The great thing about this business, what I've really enjoyed about this, is every application is a new problem to solve. No two shorelines are the same. No two water bodies are the same. So talk to the experts, whether it's ourselves or anybody else in the industry. Get some advice, ask some questions, but we'd love to talk to you about it.
Okay, so the best place to get a hold of you, I put it up on the screen here. You've got your website, DREAMDOCKS.CA.
Absolutely.
You got your email, info@DREAMDOCKS.CA. The phone number and address are up on the screen, so if you want to, Kale, if you can throw that up there for a second or two for anybody who's still listening at this point has a serious interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up real quickly. Hopefully the picture comes up. Where are we here?
Yeah, and you can text us at that phone number as well.
Okay, thank you very much for being on the podcast. If anybody wants to find it, they can Google Accurate Glass Products podcast. It'll show up on YouTube in a search. And which episode is this going to be? 8. Okay, so episode 8, which featuring Dave Coy from DreamDocks, and his contact again. Just anybody who's looking at DreamDocks.ca.
That's the easiest spot to find me.
Awesome.
And I appreciate you having us here.
Yeah, of course, no problem. I'm glad somebody local could come on who's able to service the area, and your approach to business is fantastic. I'm sure the customers will find it a good experience. So that's a wrap for Dream Docks on the Lake Effect podcast, Barrie and Muskoka's fine home building and cottage building podcast, filmed at the Sandbox Center in downtown Barrie. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.